Hi, everyone. Welcome to the TCTAC monthly technical assistance webinar. Today, we'll be talking about procedural justice in energy and climate decision making, led by our partners at NYU. So, next slide. So just some logistics for today. This meeting will be recorded and be shared afterwards. The recording and presenter slides will be shared also. Please put yourself on mute. If you're not on mute, we will put you on mute, but you will be able to ask questions in the chat. And once we go to the Q&A session, you can you can raise your hand and be taken off mute to ask questions in real time. Next slide. So just a reminder, what is the We Act TCTAC and what is our goal? Really, the TCTAC is meant to build the capacity of environmental justice communities across the region. Our region, we focus in on New York and New Jersey. And for our We Act TCTAC, we focus on building power and knowledge in EJ communities, help groups gain access to grant funding and opportunities, and support groups' abilities to advance and address environmental and energy justice issues, and to strengthen EJ work across our region of New York, New Jersey. Next slide. So this is a map of the TCTACs across the nation. There are 18 TCTACs. It is worth noting that you should check the EPA website to learn the current status of a TCTAC in your region. But in Region 2, both TCTACs, the We Act TCTAC and the Inter-American University or EAGLE TCTAC, are still serving New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and USVI. I will now pass it to Michelle Fontaine, who is presenting today, and we look forward to your questions. Take it on, Michelle.
Hi, everybody. Um, my name is Michelle Florentine. I'm a legal fellow at the Institute for Policy Integrity at New York University School of Law, and I'll be taking you through today's presentation on procedural justice in energy and climate decisions, with a focus on public utility commissions. So many states are committed to significantly reducing greenhouse gases and deploying clean energy technologies and systems. Generally, public utility or public service commissions are state level entities that regulate electric, gas, and other utilities, such as water or telecommunications. PUCs also make decisions that impact the adoption of clean energy, emissions of air pollutants and greenhouse gases, and climate resiliency. It is important for people to engage with PUCs to ensure that their community's interests are considered in decisions. But many people are not aware of PUCs, the decisions that they make, and how they impact people's everyday lives. So, to address this point, this presentation aims to introduce people who are unfamiliar with PUCs to the work that PUCs do in New York and New Jersey. In New Jersey, we have the Board of Public Utilities, and in New York, we have the Public Service Commission. So I'll be referring to these two entities a lot throughout this presentation. And today's presentation will answer the following questions. First, what is a PUC? What types of decisions do PUCs make and how do they affect communities? What are the opportunities for communities to engage with PUCs? And how can one learn more about PUC proceedings and public participation opportunities? And on this point, I'm actually going to take you to the websites for New Jersey and New York to show you some helpful links and informational pages. So for the first part of this presentation, I'm going to give you an introduction, a very brief introduction to public utility commissions. Before I dive into those details, I want to first situate us within the landscape of decision-making bodies that make climate and energy decisions. Now, there are energy decision-making bodies all across the country with different levels or scopes of authority, both on the regional, federal, and state levels. And there's some interplay between the types of decisions federal, regional, and state decision-making bodies can make. So on the federal level, we have two entities that you should know about. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is commonly referred to as FERC, and then the Department of Energy, which you might have heard of before. Now, with FERC, FERC is an independent agency that regulates all sorts of things. So, for example, FERC regulates interstate transmission of electricity, natural gas, and oil. It also regulates interstate wholesale sale of electricity and natural gas. And it has primary siting authority for interstate gas infrastructure and liquefied natural gas terminals. Now, the Department of Energy has a different purview. It oversees LNG exports, and it also advances energy efficiency programs and nuclear energy research and development. Now, taking you to the regional level, we have different regional entities across the country. Some are regional transmission operators, others are independent system operators. For New Jersey and New York, there are two entities that you should know about, PJM Interconnection and NYISO, New York Independent System Operator. PJM is a regional transmission operator that covers New Jersey and several other states. NYISO actually only covers New York, as the name kind of tells you. And these entities are responsible for transmission expansion planning, managing energy and related markets, and reliably operating an electric transmission grid. Something that you should know about these entities is that they don't actually really have the type of public participation opportunities you would see in, say, like rulemaking or other decision making on the federal or state level. By this, I mean the standard notice and comment period. So just keep that in mind when thinking about regional entities. And now, finally, state. On the state level, you have PUCs, like New Jersey's Board of Public Utilities and New York's Public Service Commission. And these entities are responsible for ensuring utilities provide safe, adequate, and reliable service at just and reasonable rates. And these are the type of decisions that we're going to delve into today. So, what are state PUCs? PUCs are state-level regulators of utility companies. And in New Jersey and New York, commissioners are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state senate. PUCs have staff across various divisions with specific areas of expertise for regulating utilities, and they also do some administrative functions. Something that you should know about New York specifically, the New York Public Service Commission sits within something called the Department of Public Service, which is the staff arm to the commission. And in general, when you're engaging with PUCs, advocates may oftentimes actually be interacting with the staff and not the commissioners themselves. So in New Jersey, there are up to 5 commissioners, and the commissioners serve staggered 6-year terms. And New York has up to 7 commissioners that serve staggered 6-year terms as well. And there's an additional requirement that at least one commissioner must have utility consumer advocacy experience. Now, what energy utilities do New Jersey and New York regulate? Well, the scope of utilities that PUCs regulate vary by state. In New Jersey and New York, PUCs regulate the following energy utilities. So New Jersey regulates electric and gas, and New York regulates electric, gas, as well as steam. And there are also non-energy utilities that these entities regulate, like water and telecommunications. We won't touch on those today, but you should just know about that. Now, let's give an overview of Public Utility Commission decision making. So, why should you be interested in the decisions that we're going to talk about today? Well, it is important for communities to have a role in shaping new sustainable energy policies and programs. And these decisions touch on issues especially important to environmental justice communities, like energy affordability, public policies that address climate change and climate justice, and natural disaster and emergency planning. PUC proceedings, however, can be very technical and have specific procedural requirements, which makes public participation time and resource intensive. But these proceedings can be very important to communities most burdened by the energy system. Now, let's talk about the types of decisions that New Jersey and New York generally make. They make lots of different decisions, but for the purpose of today's presentation, I've broken down these decisions into three main categories: rate cases, review of certain project applications, and rulemakings, programs, and implementation of initiatives. Now, I'm going to give a high-level overview of each of these different categories now. So first, what is a rate case? In a rate case, PUCs oversee utility spending and approve rates utilities can charge for services such as electricity, water, and gas. PUCs typically follow the just and reasonable standard, which aims to allow utilities to recover prudent costs while ensuring fair rates for consumers. What does that mean? I won't go into the nitty-gritty of what that calculation entails, but to expand on this point a bit, commissions are responsible for approving the rates utilities want to charge to recoup certain types of costs, such as the cost for owning, operating, and maintaining its system operations that actually provide customers with utility services. And while this calculation is supposed to balance the utilities getting enough revenue to cover their costs against public interest factors such as ensuring fair rates. The rates that PUCs approve ultimately don't always seem fair. So it's important for communities to have their interests represented in these proceedings to make sure that the balance between utility interests and public interest factors are fair. Now, rate cases typically involve technical data analysis, expert testimony, hearings, and public input, which makes these spaces really intimidating, especially to newcomers. But it's very important for you to be involved if you can, because these decisions dictate how much you're paying for your utilities every month. So for you New Yorkers out there, I just want to flag very quickly that there are actually pending rate cases right now for Con Ed, Central Hudson Gas and Electric, and Niagara Mohawk. So if you want to learn more about this after this presentation, you can go to this slide and click on this link, and it takes you to some background information for each of these proceedings. Now, let's talk about the second category of decisions that I mentioned before, project applications. So what types of project applications do PUCs review? Depending on state law, PUCs may review applications for certain projects, such as certain aspects of major electric transmission pipeline and generation projects. Why is it important to know about PUC's oversight of project applications? Well, PUC decisions on projects ultimately can significantly affect energy reliability, energy affordability, transitions to clean and renewable energies, as well as the emissions of harmful pollutants. And projects may result in health, economic, energy, and environmental impacts that disproportionately burden low-income communities and communities of color. So it's very important to try to stay plugged in to the type of project applications that PUCs are reviewing. And there may be a project application that might interest you or may potentially impact your community, and you should know about that. Now, let's talk about the third bucket of decisions that I mentioned before: rulemaking, programs, and implementation of initiatives. Now, what types of rulemaking and programs and initiatives do PUCs decide on? PUCs design and implement various rules and programs that regulate different aspects of public utility functions, such as energy reliability, net metering, and solar incentives. PUCs oversee various public participation opportunities that allow stakeholders to provide input on rulemakings, programs, strategy plans, and other decisions. Some examples of these type of public participation opportunities are public hearings, stakeholder engagement processes, technical conferences, which are highly technical, oftentimes confusing spaces where experts are talking about the nitty-gritty aspects of, say, rate design or like impacts on, the market and stuff like that. And then comment periods. Now, what is an example of a New Jersey Board of Public Utility initiative? The first thing I want to talk about on this point is the Energy Master Plan. This is a cross-agency strategic plan for New Jersey reaching its ambitious statewide goal of achieving 100% clean energy by 2035. And there are other goals and policy initiatives intertwined in this strategic plan. Now, the Board of Public Utilities Division of Clean Energy is responsible for coordinating the Energy Master Plan, which includes drafting and updating the plan with consultants and other government entities and holding public comment opportunities. As part of this statewide initiative, the Board of Public Utilities has examined and sought feedback on various issues, including rate designs that equitably distribute cost burdens as the state decarbonizes the grid, workforce impacts and training programs, which might be highly relevant to environmental justice communities and the energy transition, and pilot programs aimed at addressing health and safety issues in low-income households to prepare their homes for energy efficiency upgrades. So definitely there have been opportunities to comment on the Energy Master Plan in the past. There's actually a current comment opportunity that closes on May 1st that folks probably won't have time to comment on, and it is pretty technical, but this plan is supposed to be routinely updated. And so in the future, there may be additional opportunities for stakeholders to provide feedback. Now, what's an example of a New Jersey Board of Public Utility program? For this, I want to talk about the Community Solar Energy Program. This is a program designed to allow customers who cannot place clean energy generation on their properties to benefit from solar projects located elsewhere. And this program is especially helpful because there are various barriers to using and accessing solar. So, for example, households might not be able to afford solar panels themselves. Renters typically can't install solar because they don't own the building. And homeowners might not be able to install solar because their roofs or electrical systems aren't compatible with it. Now, this program tries to remove those barriers and also allows participants to receive a credit or a discount on their utility bill if they enroll in the program. And New Jersey Board of Public Utilities requires all community solar projects to subscribe or reserve at least 51% of its capacity for eligible low and moderate income subscribers. So this is definitely a great example of a program that a PUC did to help achieve different types of clean energy goals in the state, while also considering how to increase access to these technologies for low and moderate income users. And now I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about New York. So what's an example of a New York Public Service Commission initiative? The initiative that I want to focus on today is the New Efficiency New York docket. Now, this is an initiative to lower emissions and energy costs by encouraging developers, commercial and institutional property owners, and residential households to make improvements that reduce energy consumption. In 2018, New York set goals to accelerate energy efficiency goals, targets, and budgets for investor-owned utilities. And the PSC oversees utilities implementation plans. New York PSC staff has and may continue to seek public input on various different issues, including how it can address energy affordability issues and ensure that low and moderate income consumers have access to energy efficiency and clean energy solutions. Um, and so this is a good example of an ongoing initiative in New York that may have ongoing public participation opportunities. So after this presentation, I encourage people to click the link here to the new efficiency docket to get a sense of what's going on and potential upcoming public comment periods. Now, what's an example of a program in New York? For this, I want to talk about New York's Energy Affordability Program. In 2015, New York's Public Service Commission commenced a proceeding to examine programs to address energy affordability for low-income residential utility customers. Then the Public Service Commission hosted a series of public hearings and comment periods as it designed energy affordability programs. And it assessed issues such as how it should define energy burdens and design energy affordability programs. And for folks who are unfamiliar with the term energy burden, I just want to quickly define it here. That's the percent of annual household income that goes towards energy costs. So all of this work, all of this public input that the Public Service Commission elicited and got from different types of communities and stakeholders led to the energy affordability policy, which sets a goal for low-income customers to pay no more than 6% of their annual household income towards energy bills, which is a very important policy to have in place as energy costs continue to increase. Now, this docket is still alive and active 10 years later. In 2024, for example, the PSC approved the Energy Affordability Guarantee Pilot Program, which aims to ensure that low-income householders who fully electrify their space and water heating through the Empower Plus program will get bill assistance. So definitely a good example of like a positive, beneficial program to communities that was designed with the help of public input. Now let's end this presentation giving some information on public participation opportunities. So which types of stakeholders influence decisions when you're engaging in public participation opportunities? Well, when you're engaging with PUCs, it's important to know that PUCs and many aspects of public participation opportunities were primarily designed for stakeholders with technical expertise. And by this, I mean utilities, experts, and industry groups. But as I've touched on it throughout this presentation, it's really important for people to be engaged in these issues because they affect communities in real ways, whether it's through their health or through how much they're paying for their energy bills. And without participation, the interests of various other stakeholders might dominate the conversation. And on this note, I want to talk about the different type of stakeholders who are in these spaces. I won't go through each one in detail, but I just want to point out that utilities are in this space, large customers such as industrial, commercial, and governmental entities typically are engaged in these spaces. Individuals and small businesses that pay for utility services are in these spaces as well as different types of advocacy groups, whether it's government or non-government consumer advocates who are supposed to represent the interests of everyday consumers, or industry associations, which represent the interests of industries. So just want to give you that background if that helps encourage you to enter these spaces and represent the interests of your communities. Now, what types of public participation opportunities are available? I've touched on this a little bit in earlier on in the presentation, but to touch on this a bit further, there are different types of public participation opportunities that vary in level of formality. As a member of the public, you might be interested in submitting comment letters, attending and speaking at public hearings, attending stakeholder engagement discussions between communities, utilities, and or the PUCs themselves, and attending technical conferences or workshops. In some situations, you might be interested in becoming a party to a proceeding. This is called being an intervener. And this can grant participants access to information shared amongst parties, settlement negotiations, and other party communications, depending on the type of proceeding. And I'm going to talk about this point a little bit more on the next slide. So, are some proceedings more formal than others? Some proceedings, like rate cases, involve specific procedures and in some ways actually resemble a court proceeding before a judge, which I know sounds a bit intimidating. Typically, to be admissible as part of the formal record, evidence must be presented in the form of sworn testimony by witnesses subject to cross-examination. For example, verbal comments that you make during a public hearing in a rate case aren't actually considered sworn testimony. So those comments that you make won't be included in a formal record. To have access to certain documents or to participate in settlement negotiations, you will need to formally intervene. And as an intervener, you may have some obligations such as attending evidentiary hearings and procedural conferences, submitting testimony, and submitting formal comments in response to notices that the PUC delves out. Now, there are 2 points that I want to emphasize here. One is that different states have different requirements for who actually is eligible to be an intervener. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, you should go to the state's homepage to find more information about whether you meet the requirements for being an intervener. The second point I want to make is you should try to think strategically about whether you need to be an intervener in order to optimize your advocacy efforts. You might not actually want to engage much further in rate cases, for example, if you feel like there are going to be additional obligations that are too burdensome. So just something to think about, especially in formal spaces that are even more time and resource intensive. So for this part of the presentation, I'm actually going to switch gears or switch my screen so I can show you New Jersey and New York's PUC websites. And I hope this kind of gives you a little more context for the type of informational pages that are most helpful. Now, to start things off, I want to go to the New Jersey homepage. So this is the homepage for the Board of Public Utilities. And if you scroll down, there are some helpful links to resources up front. The one that I'm going to return to later is this document search tab. Before I go there, I want to show you 2 things. First is when you scroll down, you will see like this notices tab. And this actually just is a hodgepodge of different types of public comments, public hearings that are happening in different types of proceedings, as well as just random updates like, oh, here are some board meeting agenda minutes that have been updated. Now, I actually wouldn't recommend using this homepage to get a comprehensive view of all the different types of public participation opportunities that might be upcoming. Instead, I actually would go to the top of this page and click the Newsroom and Public Notices tab. And when you come here, there's a bunch of different resources that I want to direct your attention to. So the first one is the Utility Public Hearings folder. This actually gives you updates on public hearings and petitioned proceedings, meaning proceedings where the utility is like submitting a petition on a certain matter. Something you might be more interested in if you're doing community advocacy is the Public Notices tab right here. And these are notices on public hearings and comment periods for rulemaking programs and initiatives. So that third bucket of decisions that I talked about in this presentation. And when you look on the page, you'll see the meeting date, the comment deadline, and if applicable, any meeting minutes and recordings, presentation slides. I'm going to click on this notice as an example. This is actually in the matter of addressing energy affordability programs for low and moderate income households. So that might be of interest to some folks in New Jersey. When you look at the top of the notice, you'll see something called a docket number. This is the number that you're going to plug into the document search or case docket. And that will take you to a page with all the information, all the documents that are being filed in the case. Now, one last thing I want to show you in the Newsroom and Public Notices folder is this Reports tab. Now, the Board of Public Utilities does reports and studies, so oftentimes with the help of expert consultants, to do a deep dive on particular topics that the commissioners have to be briefed on. And so if you scroll down, there's a bunch of different types of reports on affordability, the Energy Master Plan, which I mentioned during the presentation, energy efficiency, the list goes on and on. I'm pointing you to this page because you might be trying to get engaged in a proceeding and you don't really understand all the nitty-gritty of what's being referred to during the case. And so there might be a chance that the board has already done a report that kind of explains in more detail the type of issues that they're looking at in the case. So just try to keep an eye out for that. Sometimes that's helpful, but other times the reports are very technical, so it takes a bit of time to get through. The last thing I want to show you on New Jersey's homepage is the document search that I mentioned. So if you click on this link and then this green hyperlink right here, it'll take you directly to the public document search. So this is where you're going to be able to plug in that docket number that I showed you before. For example, if you go to this past notice and I wanted to go to the docket for energy affordability in New York, I would copy and paste this and put it right here. I'm going to show you just like a different docket for an example. This is actually for the community solar pilot program that I mentioned in the presentation. If you click on this link, it'll take you to the case docket where you'll see orders and notices from the board itself, correspondence between parties, public comments that have been filed, all sorts of information. One thing that is a bit not super user friendly about this docket is that it doesn't automatically sort based off of date. So if you want to see it in chronological order with the most recently filed document coming up first, you should click on posted date twice and it'll resort it in that order. Also, something to mention is that the document titles are frequently unhelpful on New Jersey's docket search site. So You'll have to go through the document, click on the document, and look at it to understand what it actually is, which is inconvenient, but what we're working with. Now I'm going to switch over to New York's PUC website. So, like I mentioned at the start of the presentation, New York's Public Service Commission, their staff arm is the Department of Public Service. So this is their website. And when you go to the main page, you're going to immediately see some very user-friendly, helpful resource links. So you'll immediately see public input opportunities where you can look at view the calendar for upcoming comment opportunities. You can post comments and sign up to receive case updates. And then there's like a contact list that you can use if you're running into issues. If you scroll down, it also provides some links to upcoming meetings. If you scroll down further, there's usually hyperlinks to topics that might be of interest to you, such as clean energy initiatives and New York's energy affordability program. And there's also these helpful links on trending recent cases. Now, if you scroll up, something that's really helpful about this website is that it sorts information based off of the utility itself. So if you're looking for things for proceedings and public input opportunities related to electric utilities, you can go to the electric page. If you're interested in natural gas or steam, you can go to those pages, and it kind of just helps you filter information so you can save time and just get to what you need faster. So I'm going to go to the electric utilities page as an example to show you what type of information and resources that the PSC provides. So if you scroll down, you're immediately going to get a link to their pending and recent electric rate cases. And when you go on that page, the staff has helpfully drafted little tiny blurbs to give you a brief overview about what the case is about, which is really helpful. It also provides links to the type of projects that are pending and some information about the PSC's authority in those matters to make certain types of decisions. There's also information on matters you might be interested in, like clean energy proceedings. There's also additional resources in all these different folders related to electric utility management audits, investigations of electric utilities, tariffs. If you scroll down further, you can also use this search function to filter information based off of municipality and the major electric utility itself, whether that be Con Ed, Central Hudson Gas and Electric. The list goes on and on. The last link that I want to take you to is the case docket. So just like how New Jersey has a case docket where you can look up different cases or proceedings and all the information that's filed in the case, New York has a similar docket as well. They call it its file search. So if you click on this, this is where you're going to be able to put in the case number, and it'll take you directly to everything that's been filed in that proceeding. I'm not going to demonstrate that here in the interest of time because with New York, the dockets are quite large and they take some time to load. So if it's taking a little while for it to buff, it's not your computer, it's the docket and it's probably large. So bear with that if and when that happens. So if you just bear with me for a second, I'm going to actually take us back to the presentation slides. Okay, great. I hope you guys can see that. Yes. Okay. So when I distribute these slides later, I encourage you to go to these final slides here that talk about where you can find public opportunity participation opportunities, proceeding dockets, and other resources for New Jersey and New York. In New Jersey, just to recap, we went to the newsroom where we saw information on public hearings and comment periods for utility petition proceedings, as well as policies, programs, and rulemakings, as well as the reports tab. We didn't get to this today, but there is a link here to a homepage where you can see hearings and newly docketed matters. So this page continuously updates every time there is a new proceeding. And the case docket, which I took you guys through. And for New York, we talked about how each regulated utility has its own web page that directs you to various helpful resources. New York also has its case docket. And if you're having trouble managing or navigating that case docket, the PSC actually has provided resources on navigating and using its docket, document, and matter management system. So let's end the presentation on a few key takeaways. New Jersey and New York PUCs make important decisions that affect how affordable and reliable your utility services are, and whether and how your state reaches clean and renewable energy goals. Engaging with PUCs may be challenging given how technical and procedurally complex proceedings can be. But it is important to engage with PUCs to ensure that local and statewide energy decisions consider energy and climate justice interests. And one quick call to action, if you are seeing like barriers to access public participation opportunities, or you feel like your PUC could do a little more in making sure that your community's interests are fairly considered, you should connect with PUCs and maybe even your elected representatives to advocate for resources to address obstacles to meaningful participation.